The anime begins by showing Hattori Chisei, a young girl who has just signed a contract as a slave and is now looking for a new master. She decides to auction herself off, starting at the lowest price of £500,000. The auction draws a lot of interested visitors who begin to bid on her, genuinely interested in helping her. Elias reveals that Chisei has a rare ability that makes her incredibly lucky, but her traumatic past prevents her from seeing her own worth. Wanting to spare Chisei from her painful memories, Elias uses his wand to transport her away from her troubles. When Chisei opens her eyes, she finds herself in front of another beautiful house belonging to Elias, surrounded by. With his guidance, Chisei can become a great magus and fulfill her true potential. Elias also gives her an adder stone necklace for protection and assures her that she is now part of his family and can always come to him for help. Silky, a helpful maid, shows Chisei to her new room where she's grateful to have a comfortable bed. Suddenly, Jade reappears and lures Chisei into the forest. However, Chisei quickly remembers that she now has Elias as her family and decides to return to him. Along the way, Elias reveals that he wants to make her his bride. The following morning, Chisei wakes up to find Silky waiting outside her door, offering her clothes and an invitation to join Elias for breakfast in the dining room. After finishing their meal, Elias introduces Chisei to Angelica Varley, a rare magus skilled in the art of equipment crafting. Angelica teaches Chisei how to turn crystals into flowers, and as Chisei begins to visualize the process, Elias abruptly interrupts her. To Chisei's amazement, she has managed to create a beautiful crystal flower. Angelica is curious about Chisei's true identity, and Elias reveals that she is a slave Vega. After a brief conversation, they part ways and head back home. As they approach the house, they are greeted by Simon, Elias' friend, and a priest. They engage in a friendly conversation before Simon asks for a potion to treat the local residents. Elias provides the potion and Simon urges Chisei to learn as much as she can from Elias before departing. On another occasion, Elias took Chisei on a trip to Iceland's Arctic Sea to visit a volcanic region known to be frequented by dragons. As they explore the area, a dragon suddenly appears and snatches Chisei away. She finds herself on the dragon's back, with a hooded man controlling the beast. The man reveals that he has caught Elias off guard while he was guarding his disciple. Chisei demands to know who the man is, but he simply tells her that he will explain everything when they reach the last land of the dragons. Eventually, the dragon descends, but in the process, throws Chisei into a nearby lake. As she struggles to stay afloat, her energy begins to wane. Just when she thinks she's going to drown, a mysterious voice calls out to her, urging her to reach the surface. With renewed strength, Chisei pulls herself out of the water and sees an old dragon named Nevin, who appears to be near death. Beside him stands Lindell, the hooded man who brought Chisei to this place. Lindell reveals that he is a dragon's nest magus, and that he has been tasked with guarding the dragons so that they remain hidden from humans. He explains that Nevin is the oldest dragon in the forest, and Lindell has used his magic to bring vegetation back to Nevin's lifeless body. Chisei is in awe of this incredible display of magic and the secret world of dragons and their protectors. Shortly after, Chisei is asked to play with some baby dragons while Lindell and Elias are discussing something. After growing tired of playing, Chisei approaches Nevin and touches him, causing him to stir and tell her that he will soon return home. The baby dragons explain that Nevin will soon transform into a tree and grass. Before they leave, Nevin takes Chisei on a flight and shows her the world from a dragon's perspective. She accompanies him in his last moments, and witnesses his transformation into a magnificent tree. Lindell explains that he has planted tree seeds in Nevin's body, and tells Chisei that she can make a cane from the branches that grow from it. As they marvel at the beauty of Nevin's transformation, Elias asks Chisei for her opinion on the trees that Nevin has created. She responds that they are stunning. Elias also tells her that the flowers that grow on Nevin's body are called Lindenbaum. Lindell reminds Chisei not to grieve as it is the law of nature. As they prepare to leave, Chisei suddenly feels dizzy and faints. It seems that the events of the day have taken their toll on her. After waking up from fainting, Chisei finds herself in a carriage with Elias beside her. As she looks out of the window, she asks Elias where they are heading. Elias playfully responds that they're off to the next honeymoon spot. Suddenly, there's a knock on the door and a cat named Jasper appears, asking them to visit the Cat King in Ulthar. Upon arriving in Ulthar, a land of cats, Elias and Chisei come across Alice, the woman in the red jacket, before meeting with the Cat Queen, Molly. Molly informs them that they are facing a problem and need their help. Molly reveals that a powerful curse is affecting the cats in Ulthar, causing them to become ill and die. The cats believe that the curse is the work of a human, and they need Elias and Chisei to find and stop the culprit. As they discuss the situation, a young girl named Ollie appears. Ollie is Molly's human owner, and Molly treats her as her own daughter. Molly, the cat queen, takes Chisei for a walk in the forest and reveals a dark past where cats were slaughtered by a man. The first cat king managed to gather an army and fight back against the slaughterers. To prevent further harm, the next cat king had to sacrifice several lives in a polluted lake that was known to have an evil aura that could harm humans and animals. Lately, the dirty soul in the lake has been targeting anyone, including cats and humans. Molly fears for Ollie's safety and wants to prevent any harm that may come her way. Suddenly, Alice takes Chisei on a flying journey and drops her into the polluted lake. As she begins to sink, Chisei senses a woman named Mina pulling her into the personal memory of her mate Matthew, who deeply loves Mina. Mina reveals that Matthew is the core of the dirty souls in the lake, and pleads with Chisei to kill them both to prevent further endangerment of other creatures. Moments had passed since Chisei found herself in danger, but relief came as Elias appeared to rescue her. After discovering the cause of the danger, Elias finally musters the courage to ask Chisei for help in purifying the area. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to them, Alice had been eavesdropping on their conversation from behind a nearby tree. When nightfall descended, plans for the lake's purification were underway. Elias enlisted Jade's help to ensure the refining process ran smoothly. Chisei bravely ventured into the murky waters, ready to begin the purification process. But just as everything seemed to be going according to plan, Alice and Mikhail Renford, two powerful witches, appeared and disrupted the proceedings. Alice held Chisei at knife point, threatening her life. Refusing to let her fear overcome her, Chisei drew on her strength and fought back against the two witches. She refused to let Elias down, as he was the first person to truly value her. Meanwhile, Elias witnessed the lake's pollution, his anger growing at the witches who threatened the purification process. He urged Chisei to continue with the purification while he dealt with the two intruders. With the assistance of Molly and Jade, Chisei embarks on a purification process that takes them back in time to the past memories of Matthew and Mina. Mina, who was chronically ill, led Matthew to seek out a witch named Cartaphilus in a bar. After examining Mina, Cartaphilus advised Matthew to concoct a potion using cats as the main ingredient to restore her health. Without hesitation, Matthew caught the required cats from his village and began the potion-making process. However, when Mina discovered him killing the cats, she tried to intervene. She believed that Matthew, whom she knew as a kind-hearted person, would never hurt animals. Cartaphilus soon arrived and persuaded Matthew to administer the potion immediately to Mina, promising that it would grant her eternal life and good health. With Cartaphilus' guidance, Matthew gave the potion to Mina. To everyone's surprise, her body disintegrated completely after drinking it. Matthew was left distraught and frustrated, and he was attacked by Tim, Mina's pet cat, until he was killed. Mina, who appeared before Chisei after her past was revealed, urgently requested that Chisei purify her soul, Matthew's soul, and the souls of the cats that he had killed. With Jade's assistance, Chisei asked Mina to envision a dandelion flower dispersing its seeds in the air. This helped Mina reach a peaceful place filled with flowers, where she reunited with Matthew. Ultimately, Chisei was able to purify and save their souls without any loss. After successfully purifying the lake's dirty souls, Alice and Mikhail fled from Elias. Exhausted, Chisei asked Elias when she would die, to which he replied that she had about 3 more years to live if she didn't engage in dangerous activities. Elias then confessed that he had contemplated ways to keep Chisei from dying. Following his explanation, Chisei collapsed from exhaustion after completing the purification process. Elias picked her up and brought her home. After Chisei wakes up, Elias explains to her that she needs time to recover from the magic depletion she suffered in Ulthar. Simon comes to visit Elias and expresses his concern for Chisei's well-being. However, Elias reassures him that it's a natural process, and that Chisei will eventually recover. Later on, the Queen and the Elf King Titania and Oberon come to visit Elias and meet Chisei. Oberon immediately takes an interest in Chisei and assumes that she is Elias's wife. He even goes as far as asking if they have children. Titania intervenes and stops Oberon's inappropriate behavior. After the awkward encounter, the fairy rulers bid farewell to Chisei and Elias. Finally, Elias and Chisei return home and have a meal together. While night falls, Cartaphilus confronts his disciple, Mikhail, about his failure to retrieve the evil figure from the lake. He threatens to harm Mikhail's life if he cannot fulfill his task properly. The next day, Elias invites Chisei to accompany him on a journey to investigate a black dog that has been spotted in a nearby church. Elias gives Chisei a ring to limit her magical powers as a precaution. As they arrive at the church, they discover a crowd of people gathered inside, mourning the death of an individual. Elias instructs Chisei to remain at the church and keep watch over the corpse while he ventures out to gather information about the situation. Meanwhile, Chisei observes the surroundings and senses a strange energy emanating from the church. She becomes increasingly anxious about the situation and wonders what could be causing the strange occurrences. Chisei wanders through the cemetery, and she tries to keep her mind off the corpse she was left to watch. Suddenly, a demonic figure approaches her, and she fears for her life. However, before the creature can attack, a man named Ulysses appears and defends her. Chisei senses that there is something different about Ulysses, and soon he transforms into a black dog. Ulysses is badly injured and faints from his wounds. Alice appears on the scene and reveals that she knows Ulysses. She plans to take him away, but Chisei stops her, grateful for Ulysses' help in protecting her from the demon. Ulysses eventually wakes up and recognizes Chisei's resemblance to Isabel, his missing sister. He shares his story with her and later reverts back to his human form. Alice eventually wakes up after being knocked out by Chisei and realizes that her hands are tied. Chisei asks Alice about her intentions for capturing Ulysses, and Alice reveals that she plans to use him as material to create a chimera, under the orders of Mikhail, her beloved teacher. After Elias arrived, Alice desperately sought his help to rescue her teacher from the clutches of Cartaphilus. As she explained the situation, the nefarious figure suddenly appeared, intent on attacking Alice. But before he could harm her, Chisei heroically stepped in to save her friend, sustaining injuries in the process. Elias, witnessing Chisei's bravery and injury, was consumed with anger, and transformed into a terrifying monster. He attacked Cartaphilus with ferocity, as Ulysses tended to Chisei's wounds. As the battle raged on, Chisei tapped into her own powers, healing herself and ultimately stopping Elias from causing any further harm. But as the dust began to settle, Cartaphilus proved to be far from defeated. Despite being shot, he rose again, taking on the monstrous form of Isabel. Furious at Cartaphilus for toying with Ulysses' emotions and forcing him to expend his powers in battle, Chisei unleashed her own rage. Just as the fight reached its peak, a sudden burst of fairy magic transported Elias and the others to a new location. After safely fleeing from Cartaphilus, Will-O-the-Wisp appeared and offered Chisei some of his coal to help calm her nerves. He also revealed to them that Ulysses was not an ordinary dog, but a black dog tasked with chasing tomb thieves to the depths of hell. Ulysses then asked Chisei to make him her familiar, the strongest form of bond in which they would share everything, including feelings and emotions. If Ulysses were to die, Elias would also perish. Cartaphilus suddenly appeared before them, but Alice quickly fired a shot at the witch. However, the attempt was unsuccessful in paralyzing him. Ulysses begged Chisei to make him her familiar to avoid being captured by Cartaphilus, and Chisei agreed to form a contract with him, renaming him Ruth. With the contract formed, Ruth immediately transformed into Isabel and attacked Cartaphilus. With a swift strike, he managed to defeat the witch, forcing him and his companions, including Mikhail and Alice, to retreat. Elias, Chisei, and Ruth decided to return home together. A week had passed since the incident at the church, and Elias had secluded himself in his room, causing Chisei to grow increasingly worried. While she sat at the dinner table, Silky brought her some money so that she could go out and do some shopping. Chisei and Ruth left to buy some things for the house, and they bumped into Angelica, who invited them to join her. Chisei used the money given by Silky to purchase some essential items. Angelica then examined the ring that Chisei was wearing and asked if it was functional. Ruth commented that Chisei always appeared drowsy after using magic. Hearing this, Angelica advised Chisei not to rely too much on Elias and to take care of herself properly. On the way back home, Angelica expressed her concerns to Chisei and urged her to enjoy life while she was young and able. Upon arriving at the house, Chisei was still anxious about Elias' condition but eventually gathered the courage to enter his room. Inside, she was met with the sight of Elias transformed into a monster. She requested an explanation from him, promising to hear him out in the morning. However, to her dismay, Elias was gone the next day. Desperate to locate him, Chisei sought out Simon, but he was of no help. They then headed to a new location where they met Joel Garlard, an elderly man who seemed to be followed by an invisible vampire. Joel invited them in for tea and, noticing Chisei's pallid complexion, Simon suggested she rest while he continued his search for Elias. When they sipped tea, Joel introduced himself to Chisei, and they engaged in conversation. When their tea time ended, Ruth announced that he had located Elias. Chisei rushed to where he was and confronted him about his reluctance to share his true nature with her. Elias was unable to give a proper response, and only promised to reveal everything at the appropriate time. Shortly after, Lindel's familiar, Marichali, arrived with a message summoning Chisei to the land of the dragons. After receiving the message from Marichali, Elias brings her to his home to explain the details of the message from Lindel. Upon hearing that Chisei is struggling to use her magic, Lindel suggests that she make a magic wand. Excited to meet her, Lindel requests that Chisei comes to him alone to discuss the wand. Elias permits Chisei to go, as it is solely for the purpose of discussing the wand. The following day, Chisei sets off on her journey with Ruth aboard Marichali, a familiar dragon. After a lengthy journey, they arrive at their destination and meet Lindel, who informs them that the land of the dragons is a dragon's nest built by the first steward for the remaining dragons in the world. Meanwhile, Elias receives a message from Adolf Stroud, a member of the college administration, regarding the future of a child. During dinner with Lindel, he notices the scratches on Chisei's hand and uses his magic to heal them. Lindel then expresses his concern for Chisei, fearing that Elias may be attempting to control her like a human taming a reindeer. However, Chisei disregards Lindel's concerns and remains committed to benefiting Elias in any way possible. Before going to bed, Lindel told a captivating story to his young audience about how he met his apprentice, Elias. It all started when Lindel spotted Elias in the woods, who looked like a mystical creature with his unique appearance. Lindel was intrigued and decided to bring Elias to his teacher, Tori Innes. Upon reaching Tori's house, they were greeted with an astonished expression as Tori saw Elias's large size. Tori asked Elias to shrink his size to appear more like a human, which Elias promptly did. After researching Elias's characteristics, Tori was still clueless about the creature's origin, but he requested Lindel to take care of and teach Elias the ways of the world. Lindel took Elias under his wing and became his mentor, teaching him various life skills for a few years. Despite the extensive knowledge imparted to Elias, he felt like there was nothing left for him to learn, which left him feeling unfulfilled. One day, Lindel and Elias found themselves short of food and decided to visit a nearby house where they heard they could heal the sick in exchange for food. However, things took a sinister turn when one of the boys saw a shadow of Elias inside Lindel and started to scream that a demon had possessed the old man. The residents, believing Elias to be a malevolent creature, chased him away, and in the chaos, Lindel was badly injured. Elias, filled with rage and desperation, went on a rampage against the citizens. To prevent Elias from causing any more harm, Lindel used displacement magic to stop him. Later, that made the flowers bloom and the elves dance in pure joy. Chisei danced along with them, feeling truly alive. After the song ended, Chisei wandered off to a nearby lake and gazed up at the starry sky. As she looked at the tranquil water, she suddenly felt a connection with Elias and sensed his agitation. She reached out to him and asked why he felt so lonely. Elias replied that he missed her company and was eagerly waiting for her to come home. Chisei reassured him that she had heard all the stories about him and promised to return as soon as her wand was complete. The next morning, Chisei woke up to find her magic wand completed, and Lindel had performed a magical ritual using her hair and gemstones to perfect it. As she held the wand, she found herself transported to a place where she met Nevin, who thanked her for turning his tree branch into a magic wand. Nevin explained that they had forged a bond of destiny through the wand, and they were now at the limit of wanderers. Seeing Chisei's sadness, Nevin encouraged her to express her feelings about Elias. Chisei revealed her fear of being abandoned by Elias, but Nevin advised her not to be afraid and to be proud of herself. After their conversation, Nevin disappeared, and Chisei found herself back with Lindel. She thanked Lindel for creating her magic wand and said goodbye to him, as she had something important to tell Elias. Using her newly acquired magic wand and with the help of fairies, Chisei transformed herself into a firebird and flew quickly back home. Exhausted from the journey, she fell asleep as soon as she arrived, and Elias carried her to his room to rest. She slept for 2 days straight, but when she finally woke up, she felt refreshed and happy. On a sunny morning, Chisei noticed an abundance of woolly cotton insects flying around the house. Elias invited her to help him shave the insect's fur, as the wool was highly sought after for magic and magical equipment. Angelica even ordered wool from Elias regularly, and the rest of the wool was used as a sleeping pillow. After they finished shaving the insects, Elias reminded Chisei not to touch any other insects. However, a different type of insect suddenly appeared and attacked Chisei, causing her body to become cold. Ruth tried to use his fire to attack the insect, but it was ineffective. The insect then laid an egg, which hatched into a group of insects that began to attack Chisei. Elias quickly intervened and chased the insects away, bringing Chisei into the house to warm her cold body. At times when Chisei was alone with Elias, he would try to erase her memories to prevent her from having any bad memories of him. However, Chisei stopped him, as she believed that her memories, good or bad, were valuable to her. Chisei also shared her past and feelings with Elias, who had taken care of her since buying her. After hearing all of Chisei's stories, Elias felt grateful to have her in his life and offered to teach him all about being human. Chisei happily continued with her usual days after that. A few days later, Simon visited, coughing and seeking a cure. Chisei gave him an elderberry herb that was effective for treating a sore throat. In the dimly lit evening, Ash and I paid Elias a visit to celebrate the news of Chisei's birth as a new magus. Elias reminded Chisei to be cautious as Ash and I was not human. However, before they knew it, Ash and I approached Chisei and turned her into a fox before releasing her into the wild. Elias rushed after Chisei, but Ash and I blocked his path, insisting on testing both Elias and Chisei's devotion. Ash and I suggested that if Chisei truly wanted to be with Elias, she would return home in her fox form. He claimed that it would be easier to keep an eye on her this way, but Elias couldn't bear the thought of being alone anymore and joined the pursuit. Eventually, Ash and I relented and allowed Elias to continue. Once Elias caught up to Chisei, he expressed his loneliness and desire to be with her. Hearing his words, Chisei returned to her human form, and they headed home together. During their time together, Elias shared his knowledge of how the fox skin given by Ash and I could potentially turn someone into a werewolf. As the evening draws near, Chisei is ready to retire for the night when a vampire named Red suddenly appears before her. Red implores Chisei to help Joel, a human whom she always follows, as he has been unconscious for several days. Without hesitation, Chisei rushes to Joel's home to assess his condition. Elias soon arrives and informs Chisei that Joel's state is due to Red's presence. While Red does not feed on Joel's blood, the humans that vampires follow do not live long. Chisei asks Elias to take care of Joel while she takes Red out to calm her down. Upon waking up, Joel sees Elias in his human form and reveals that his short lifespan is due to his illness rather than any curable disease. Joel yearns to see Red once more, whom he had only glimpsed in a flower garden. Chisei creates a fairy ointment that allows Joel to see Red, and the next day, Red takes Joel to the flower garden and applies the ointment. Joel is finally able to see Red and express all of his feelings before disappearing. After Chisei and Elias return home from the land of the fairies, they are greeted by Oberon, who has been waiting for them to take the fairy ointment. However, their reunion is cut short when Chisei's ring suddenly shatters, leaving her weakened. In a panic, Oberon instructs Ruth to enter Chisei's shadow to stabilize her condition. Elias then decides to take Chisei back to the land of the fairies, where she can receive the proper care she needs. Days later, Chisei awakens feeling disoriented and confused about her surroundings. A doctor named Shannon explains to her that she is in the land of the fairies, and that her amulet has been keeping her alive. After some rest and recuperation, Chisei is successfully healed and ready to return home. Meanwhile, Elias meets with Oberon to express his gratitude for helping Chisei. During their conversation, Titania offers Elias the opportunity to live in the fairyland with Chisei to ensure her longevity. However, Elias declines the offer, as he still wants to learn about human thoughts and emotions. As Shannon and Chisei venture through the land of the fairies, Shannon reveals that she used to work at a human hospital, but was forced to leave due to the humans' fear of her. She brings Chisei to a lake, telling her the water is believed to have healing properties. But suddenly, Shannon attacks Chisei, strangling her and attempting to drown her in the water. Chisei fights back, desperate to survive. After the struggle, Shannon explains that she did it to speed up the healing of Chisei's wound. Meanwhile, Silky is back at the house, waiting for the return of Chisei and Elias. As she cleans, she grows tired and falls asleep. In her dream, she remembers her past, when she was alone and met Spriggan, who took her to a human house. It was Spriggan who gave her the name Silky, and transformed her appearance. In the present, Elias and Chisei finally return home, greeted warmly by Silky, who had been eagerly awaiting their arrival. As Chisei steps outside the house, she encounters two creatures known as the Heralds of Yule, who are preparing for a Yule ritual. Curious, Chisei asks about the ritual, and Elias appears behind her, explaining that they are about to begin. Elias then suggests that they venture into the forest to gather some materials needed for the Yule ritual. As they collect the necessary items, Chisei reflects on how much she has grown since first coming to Elias's world of magic and wonders. That night, after they have finished preparing for the ritual and hanging the mistletoe, Elias informs Chisei that according to tradition, kissing someone you love under the mistletoe brings good luck. Chisei, moved by the sentiment, kisses Elias under the mistletoe. Sometime later, Before the Christmas celebrations, Chisei decides to sneak out of the house to meet with Alice, who seeks her advice on what Christmas gift to give to Mikhail. Together, they scour various stores in search of the perfect gift, but to no avail. It's not until they come across Hazel that they finally receive some helpful suggestions, and they rush off to find the gift. During their search, Alice unexpectedly runs into some old acquaintances who offer her drugs, but she turns them down and urges Chisei to flee the scene. Alice then confides in Chisei about her difficult past, recounting how she was forced to sell drugs as a child until she met Mikhail, who took her in and helped her break free from that life. After their successful Christmas gift exchange, Chisei and Elias return home to their cozy cottage. Chisei can't help but admire the teddy bear Elias gave her, with its soft fur and the crystal flower growing on its head. Elias reveals that the teddy bear is absorbing Chisei's excess, but she's still surprised by the magical gift. Excited to thank Simon for his thoughtful gift, Chisei sets off to see him, but Elias insists on joining her, worried that she'll wander off again. Along the way, they come across a distraught little girl named Stella who is desperately searching for her missing brother, Ethan. Stella begs Chisei for help and tells the story of how Ethan disappeared, but it's strange that no one in her family seems to remember him. Stella offers a snack as payment if Chisei agrees to help her find Ethan, and Elias emerges from hiding to join in the search. They venture into the forest, seeking the help of the creatures who dwell there. After some time, Chisei and Stella catch a glimpse of Ethan in the company of a mysterious figure, later revealed to be Ashenai. Stella pleads with Ashenai to return her younger brother, but he refuses, citing her earlier statement that she did not need Ethan. Instead, he proposes a game to determine Ethan's fate. They must find Elias and Ethan before sunset. It's along the way. Finally, Chisei locates Elias and Ethan in a clearing, and the group rejoices at their reunion. As promised, Ashenai returns Ethan to Stella, and miraculously, her family can now remember him once again. The next day, Stella visited Chisei as promised, bringing along some snacks. They chatted and enjoyed a warm cup of tea in Chisei's cozy room. From the window, Chisei noticed Elias transform into a dog and run out of the house, prompting her to chase after him in the form of a wolf. But instead of catching Elias, Chisei found herself being caught by him. She then invited Elias to join her for tea and realized he seemed confused about their relationship. Meanwhile, Stella and her family were on their way back to London when they unexpectedly encountered Cartaphilus, causing Stella to feel a sudden pain in her neck. Ruth was growing increasingly worried as the day wore on, and Chisei still hadn't returned home. As night began to fall, he set out to look for her. While on his search, Ruth saw a burst of fire in the sky, which he recognized as a signal from Chisei. He hurried towards the location of the flare, and eventually encountered a young girl who pointed him in the direction of Chisei and Elias. When Ruth finally found them, he saw that Elias had bound Chisei and was about to end her life. Desperate to save her, Chisei pleaded with Elias to release her. Realizing the gravity of his actions, Elias relented and freed Chisei. She then invited him to come home with her so they could talk about what had happened. The next morning, Chisei sneaks off to Angelica's house to seek help for Elias, who has been in a deep sleep for several days. Angelica gives Chisei a recipe to wake him up, and she hurries back home to make the potion and give it to Elias. Finally, Elias awakens from his long slumber. Meanwhile, Linda witnesses a group of dragon hunters in action, and he urges them to leave immediately. But their hunt is interrupted by the sudden appearance of Cartaphilus, who takes the hunters and the dragon they have captured. In the midst of all this, Chisei has a dream in which she finds herself in London, where she encounters Cartaphilus and is asked for help. Upon waking up, she sees Alice in her room, along with Mikhail, Adolf, Tori, and Marichali. They inform her that a dragon child has been stolen from the land of the dragons, and the thief has left behind an object that belongs to Cartaphilus. Chisei has a feeling that Cartaphilus is in London and that something terrible is about to happen. The group then headed to Seth Noel's place to attend the dragon child auction. Chisei also requested Seth to sell her crystal flowers. The bidding for the dragon child started at £800,000. Suddenly, a woman contacted Chisei telepathically, claiming that she could be useful to her. They made a verbal agreement, and the woman agreed to help Chisei. As the auction progressed, the dragon child suddenly transformed into a giant dragon, going berserk uncontrollably. Chisei sensed that the dragon just wanted to return home due to fear and torment. She insisted on returning the dragon to its place of origin and asked Elias to teach her how to control it. Moved by Chisei's determination, Elias agreed to help. To execute the plan, Adolf and the others distracted the dragon while Chisei climbed onto its back. But as they were about to succeed, the dragon suddenly went berserk again and flew away from the auction house. Chise used her powers to calm the dragon down and prevent it from causing any more damage. After the harrowing experience at the dragon auction, Chise is left injured and in need of medical attention. Shannon, the fairy queen, tends to her wounds, and Chise is shocked to discover that her left hand has turned into that of a dragon's. Lindo contacts her to explain that she has been cursed by the dragon and that the curse will slowly eat away at her body until she is destroyed. Despite the dire consequences, Chise is unafraid of the curse as she has lived with 2 other curses already. Shannon offers Chise the chance to stay in the land of the fairies but warns her that she will no longer be human. Uncertain of what to do, Chise takes some time to consider the offer. Soon after, Stella visits Chise to invite her to her birthday party. That night, while Chise and Elias sleep, they find themselves transported to a world where witches gather. There they meet Phyllis, a wizard who knows of their quest to lift the dragon's curse. Marielle, the woman who telepathically contacted Chise earlier, is also present. Unfortunately, Phyllis reveals that she doesn't know how to lift the curse. Before they leave, Marielle shares an ominous message: only one life can be replaced by another. One evening, Elias seeks out Tori to gain insight into how to lift Chise's dragon curse, but unfortunately, Tori doesn't have any information to offer. Disappointed, Elias wanders the streets and bumps into Stella. Elias impulsively invites Stella to meet Chise, hoping to gain her trust and perhaps learn more about how to lift the curse. Meanwhile, Chise begins to feel uneasy and suspects that Elias is up to something. She confides in Jade, asking her for help in case something goes wrong. Shortly after, Elias brings Stella to his home and reveals his plan to transfer the curse from Chise to Stella. But unknown to Elias, Cartaphilus has taken control of Stella, turning her into a different person. When Chise discovers Stella in her home, she finds her acting afraid and claiming that Elias is planning to sacrifice her to save Chise. In response, Chise orders Stella to leave immediately and confronts Elias about his actions. Elias confesses that he only wanted to save Chise from the curse, which was making her sick. He leaves in pursuit of Stella. Upon meeting Stella, Chise realized that the girl in front of her was not whom she appeared to be, but was actually Cartaphilus in disguise. He proposed a deal to Chise, to make a pact that would save her from death, but if she refused, Stella's life would be at stake. With no other option, Chise agreed to the agreement, and Cartaphilus took her to his lab. There, he asked for Chise's left hand and promised to exchange it for a body part that would grant her immortality. Though hesitant, Chise agreed, and the exchange was made. But the deal was far from over, as Cartaphilus proceeded to show Chise her past in a dream. She relived the happy memories she had with her family, but then Cartaphilus revealed a darker memory of where her father left her, causing her mother to almost kill her. As Chise awoke from the dream, a fragment of Cartaphilus appeared and started to do something to her. On the other hand, Elias, who did not manage to find Chise, becomes upset. His desperation causes him to lose control, and his uncontrollable power begins to contaminate the surrounding land. Titania and Oberon, the rulers of the Fae, arrive to stop him and calm him down. Titania then lends her power to Elias, enabling him to locate Chise. Meanwhile, Phyllis is furious with Marielle for harming humans. Marielle explains that she did it out of love for Phyllis, but Phyllis is still angry and leaves her behind. In a flashback, it is revealed that Cartaphilus was once a young boy named Joseph who was ostracized by his community for his strange magic. One day, while visiting a cemetery, Joseph heard cries for help and discovered a man buried alive named Cartaphilus. He took the man home and cared for him, but was unable to cure him. Eventually, Joseph decided to merge his soul with Cartaphilus, becoming the immortal being he is now. In the present moment, Cartaphilus is seething with anger towards Chise, who has delved into her past, and he intends to attack her. However, luck is on Chise's side as Titania, Elias, and Mikhail come to her aid. Cartaphilus summons a horde of monsters to fight them off as he makes his escape. Despite Titania's invitation to leave, Chise refuses as she has unfinished business with Cartaphilus and sets out after him with Elias. Along the way, they encounter Marielle, who offers to help them. Eventually, Chise catches up to Cartaphilus and tries to revive him, but her efforts prove to be in vain. Ashanai intervenes and comes to Karnai with one powerful attack. Chise attempts to recite the sleeper's magic, but Cartaphilus stabs her, leaving her immobilized. However, she manages to faint from the wound inflicted by Cartaphilus. Elias then brings Chise back home. After Chise wakes up in her room with Elias, she feels grateful for his care and attention. However, she still feels troubled by her encounter with Cartaphilus and the revelations about her past. Seeking solace, Chise visits Angelica's house to inform her that she has recovered from her injuries. In response, Angelica gives Chise a thoughtful gift, which touches her deeply. Later, Chise visits her friend Stella, who surprises her with an early birthday celebration. Though Chise is moved by the gesture, she admits that she has never celebrated her birthday before, which prompts Stella to give her a special gift. Instead of keeping it, Chise gives Stella the crystal flower that she had received from Cartaphilus, feeling that it belongs to someone who will appreciate it more. The scene ends with Chise standing in the forest, dressed in a beautiful wedding gown gifted to her by Stella. She awaited the arrival of Elias. When he finally appeared, Chise took his hand and placed a ring on his finger, asking him to stay by her side always. Elias accepted her request, declaring that Chise is his bride. The moral lesson of the story is that if you're being chased by a powerful and evil sorcerer, always bring a group of magical friends and a spare wedding dress with you, just in case you end up getting married in the forest.